Hey everybody, Jonathan Broadbent here, your host of UnWoke Academy. Let's talk courage, moral integrity, and value systems. But first, before we dive into that, I want to quickly touch on the upcoming 100-100 party. We're at 20 days, 16 hours, 35 minutes, and 49 seconds until it becomes officially the 4th of July. The significance of that date is not only a celebration of the independence of the United States, but also it will mark the date when we, the UnWoke team here, we decided a long time ago, when we officially take the boot heel of weaponized regulators off our throat and claim our autonomy and independence. So that, in a nutshell, if you haven't been following the whole weaponized regulator thing and the series of interviews I did with other professionals who have suffered at the hands of weaponized regulators for having been outed or come out themselves as conservative and holding patriotic pro-Western values, many of us in all sorts of different professions have been the subject of scorn, cancellation, and ridicule, not just on social media, where, as a side note, I am officially canceled from the social media platform LinkedIn. And that one actually isn't even the voice of UnWoke that I do. It's personally, I was communicating on COVID-19 issues and whether or not the whole jab thing was for me, and that got me canceled. But anyway, in similar fashion, many of us in professional world or in the world in general face all sorts of cancellation, and that includes especially those of us who are in private practice, have small businesses. Regulation and regulators can be used to crush us. It's heartbreaking, and I guess one day I'll come to terms with it. I put a lot of my own heart, money, soul, blood, sweat, and tears into starting my own company many years ago in order to be out from under Wall Street. But eventually, the regulators who oversee my small business, and there are many of them, it's a whole myriad. And as another side note, it's just baffling to me that when you talk to the regulators, they themselves, off the record, will admit there is no such thing as compliance. The rules are so onerous that they crush everybody. It's overtaken, like the majority of time is spent in trying to dot I's and cross T's. Actually, it's tittle I's and cross T's. Sorry, that's a little trivia. But anyway, the point is, on the 4th of July, the plan is to be out from under because I can't be within the confines of Wall Street. I have to air quote that, Wall Street, globalist banks, but also fight back against Wall Street globalist banks, because the oversight of the financial industry, the financial marketplace, is conducted by the very people who I believe and argue are harming America. So I will become unregulated, and all that we do will no longer be under the umbrella of oversight of weaponized regulators. 26 months they have been after me, and it's just soul crushing and exhausting. But we're gonna get out from under. So if you are one of those people who is signed up to become part of the 100-100, that in a nutshell, I've talked about that in some previous episodes. We're going to take some case studies of some people and some companies that have just through normal happenstance and normal sort of functional financial lives have allowed themselves to be kind of funneled into the woke. And we're going to expose all that. We're going to walk through step by step how easy it is to actually become unwoke, whatever that might look like in your circumstances and where you are. That means IRA, 401k, 529 plans for the kids and grandkids, your bank account, all that stuff. We want to show step by step. By the way, of course, all those individuals will be kept confidential. You'll not know their names. I'll probably give them nicknames like Fred and Barney or something, Fred and Wilma. Um, but the cool thing is going to be walking through and exposing what it takes to become unwoke. And you may be surprised at how easy it is, including like mutual funds. So if you're somewhere that has a 401k plan and you get that menu of mutual funds, there are a bunch of ways that we can go about helping to guide you to get your money out of the hands of the far left wokadoodles. They are clearly funneling your money, our hard-earned money, into far left companies, causes, and countries. And again, connected to that, there's sort of this tapestry of information that you'll find on UnWoke. Recently, I had the pleasure of interviewing Justin Bernier, who released the National Security Index. And one of the things that he and a group of people that he is connected to have done is to release a statement, or it's actually a big report, rather, that went to Congress highlighting how companies like BlackRock are allegedly taking our hard-earned money, putting it into investments that prop up and support the military ambitions of things like the Chinese Communist Party. So wouldn't you be surprised to learn that your 401k is invested in something like that? It's awful, and it's possible. So we want to uncover that stuff. And starting with the 4th of July, we're going to start doing that and talking about those in a step-by-step. In the meantime, there's lots of information that's coming out on the UnWoke Substack and places like it, talking about different platforms. We've kind of unraveled and talked about The Great Taking, which is a book by David Rogers Webb. All kinds of stuff going on. But I want to briefly go back. Let's get in the time machine and go back to 2009. In 2009, and I didn't realize at the time the significance of what I was seeing and the steps that I took. But I want to put it this way. I'll put it in this context. Many times in the course of our lives, we're faced with choices and challenges, and how we face those and the choices we make have consequences, good and bad. In 2008, 2009, I found myself at odds with a company where I was working. It was a Wall Street firm. And in my view, I saw them actually doing harmful things that benefited a single company. They were sort of skewing things in the favor of a company called BlackRock. And I wrote this big, long, scathing, it was a multi-page letter, just kind of admonishing them for what I consider to be bad behavior. You have to sort of keep in mind that where I fit in the world of finance is sort of a unique little niche. Not many of us work there. It's in pension administration and financial fiduciary due diligence for investment funds and those kinds of things. So I saw leanings toward and sort of a funneling of money into the company BlackRock. So in 2009, 15 years ago, it's hard to believe it was 15 years ago, I wrote this big, long, scathing letter and was like, I think this is terrible, and I don't believe that this is professional conduct and blah, 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 whatever. That letter was, if you've ever been called into the principal's office, this was that times a million. I had the lawyers and legal threats, and I got the Riot Act read to me in 2009. It was tough. It was a pretty withering attack, and it's tough to stand up to that when it's your firm and the people who you're supposed to be interacting with come at you like that. Well, I brought in some of my own big guns, and we kind of fought, and that was the beginning of the end for me. That marked a kind of a pivot point in interacting with Wall Street, because it wasn't that long after I was forced out. So I sort of left. It was a little weird circumstance. I left but I was forced to leave effectively. It's kind of nuanced. It gets into the weird. Wall Street is weird. And compensation structures can be arranged and manipulated in really harmful and damaging ways. But that's a story for a different podcast. But the thing is, I actually didn't think that much about that experience until fairly recently, when I kind of put the two and two together, and I see in the media and social media and all over the world, there's now sort of this general awareness, and people are talking about the funneling of money into places like BlackRock, and how it is that they came to manage roughly $10 trillion in assets. And you can see, if you listen to the leadership team at BlackRock, they talk very aggressively about manipulating society into becoming sort of this, I want to call it a global communism, or whatever you want to call it. That's all bad stuff. That is harmful. We in the West, who believe in autonomy, freedom, personal liberties, those kinds of things, we want to fight that. So I think I saw maybe earlier than some where the puck was going to be, to use that old Wayne Gretzky expression. So I sort of finally occurred to me. I guess I'd sort of blocked out the letter because it was a tough time, and it was many years ago. But all of a sudden, it occurs to me, how do I want to put this? If you're the religious type, you'll think God works in mysterious ways, and sometimes you don't always see the steps and what's being put in front of you. But suddenly, it occurs to me to think specifically about what I saw happening in 2008, 2009, and prior. But specifically in those years, that finally got me to that breaking point where I was like, wait a minute, I really don't think you should be behaving in this way. So that goes to integrity and how we treat the world around us as professionals. And actually, I'm going to pause right there. I'm going to bring up something new and different on my green screen behind me. Hold that thought for 1 second. Okay, I found it. So now you can see behind me this funny looking screen. If you're on social media, you've probably seen this. It claims to be a letter that went out from a healthcare organization in a particular state. I've blacked that out because we don't need to focus on that specifics. But the gist of it is, this letter is claiming to have gone through and done the math on additional compensation that physicians could receive if they achieved a certain percentage of the jab in their patients. Why am I bringing that up? Because I don't work in healthcare, but again, I'm drawing the analogy. There's a parallel between sort of the machinations, the manipulation of big pharma over hospitals, and hospitals then controlling and mandating certain behaviors from their physicians. And in my book, it's very similar. It's eerily similar in the world of finance. You have these globalist entities, these big, I'm going to just call them global banks, that really exert massive financial control and manipulation of Wall Street. I'm air quoting Wall Street because in my book, clearly, I believe that Wall Street turned its back on mainstream America a long time ago, and really does very little. And if they do anything that is to the benefit of American citizens and Western civilization, it's by accident. I don't mean to disparage all of Wall Street. There's some good actors there. There's some good people. But generally speaking, Wall Street has gotten caught up in this whole globalist scheme because there's so much money being pumped in to manipulate and drive the world toward this sort of globalist thing, that they're perfectly willing to set aside all sanity, reason, and logic, including traditional fiduciary due diligence. What that means, that's a fancy way of saying how we analyze investments and their potential. So forever, from the beginning of the stock market, there were basic premises that we all followed, like what is healthy and what's unhealthy. And with enough money, it's been discovered that you can make people do unhealthy things to the clients that they serve if there's benefit to them. And I firmly believe that this is a case in point. This is an example of physicians being told to do this thing that I clearly, firmly believe, based on all the research, everything I'm reading, was harmful. And I think some doctors might have paused and maybe not done jab after jab after jab, especially into babies and children and all that stuff, if it weren't for the extra money that they can make. As a kind of a connected note, when you talk about the money involved, so this is physicians and healthcare. And I believe in one iteration, I read this a bunch of times, a few different people have forwarded some different versions of the same thing to me. And somebody did some math and figured out that some average physician could make, it was something like $1 million more a year, whatever it was, if they achieved 80% or more of all the jabs and boosters, and then booster 2 and booster 7, whatever, however many shots that we ended up getting up to. If they did all those jabs, they could make an extra $1 million a year or something. That, I'm sorry to say, is chump change compared to the world of finance. In the world of finance, and I saw it, and I was literally at that fork in the road in 2008, 2009. I was, I don't like to toot my own horn or whatever the expression is, but at that time, I was literally being billed as kind of the poster child of success. And I was being kind of given these bonus sorts of things and like a lot of pat on the back and those kinds of things, because I think the sense was that I could make a lot of money for the big Wall Street firms. And well, I know that was the sense. If only I just play along and follow the orders. And if I do that, I can get all kinds of perks and gravy train bonus things and all that stuff. It was everything from loge seats at professional sporting events to paid for parking in the parking garage, which was really hard to get into, and all that stuff. And it goes on from there into many, many like extra perks and bonuses and getting handouts from within the office that make tons of extra money. So in that scenario, $1 million a year extra is like nothing. It's easy, very, very easy, I saw, to meet and exceed that like overnight. But in order to do that, you have to set aside and be willing to jettison your value system. So I ended up paying the price for mine, but I'm happy to do it, and I would do it the same way again. I'm glad that I wrote that letter. I'm glad that I had the fortitude to stand up to that in 2009. And I hope that more people in more industries start to do the same, which leads me to another request. Once again, I'm going to put this out there in my podcast. If you work in the world of finance, and I talk to tons of people, I talk to them all the time because I'm constantly making phone calls. I have been for years, to all the people, 2 years at least, to the people that I know in finance. And most overwhelmingly, most of them say, oh my gosh, I can almost picture them like whispering in the phone under their desk saying, hey, it's so good to hear from you, because we have woke being crammed down our throats. And if I even admit that I'm thinking like you, they're talking to me. If I even admit in a little glimpse that I'm not woke, I think they'll can me. I'll be out of here. I'll be out of a job overnight. It's that bad in the world of finance. But if you work in the world of finance, a few things. I've gotten really good at keeping people's information confidential, not only because I work in finance, but because until recently, I served a couple of years as a chair and territory lead of something called Protect Ohio Children. It's unrelated to finance, but we're the people that created a whistleblower outlet for teachers and people in school administration to come forward with woke stuff like the pornography and those kinds of things. And we've published a lot of it. We created a whole network of infrastructure to keep people's information confidential. And we created fits for the left because we learned to network and fight back. My point is that if you work in finance and you are inclined to try to fight back against this wokadoodle far left nonsense, contact me, because you can stay where you are and get as little involved or as much as you'd like, but many hands make light work. We can fight back from within, and we can create alternatives to this nonsense where we can once again begin to look at the integrity of our industry of working in finance, kind of like America's frontline doctors. No affiliation. I don't know any of the leadership team or anything like that. I just admire what those doctors have been able to do to shed light on the far left influence in the world of medicine. I want to do the same thing in the world of finance. And I'm looking for other people out there with that sort of spark to act with integrity, to fight back, even if it's just occasional phone calls and you want to talk about what you're seeing and we can share information. And I can give you, my friends also working in finance, I can give you some pointers, maybe make some connections or introductions that might lead to a different job where you're less pressured and stressed into following the narrative, and maybe do things with more confidence and more, just more autonomy and ability to focus on the client and what's in their best interest, not what's going to make the most money for the overlords above. Trust me, I've been there, I've seen it, I know what you're going through. You're not alone. So if you are, I'm going to go back to the countdown. We're at 20 days now until 4th of July. If you're interested in joining I still believe it's the world's first financial private membership association, and that is actually the website, financialpma.com. We bought all the domains, so if you mistype it, financialpma.net or .org or whatever, it all redirects. Go to financialpma.com. Right now, it's kind of wireframe. In the future, we're going to make it look nicer and we're going to pretty up the website. But right now, we needed to get something out there. The agreement is up there. If you'd like to join the PMA or request membership, fill that out. It has an electronic signature component. By the way, follow my Substack on that. I talk a lot about those electronic virtual signature things because it bothered me that some of them actually have information. They gather your information and they can see the actual document you're signing. That's not okay with me. I found a company that does the virtual electronic signature on our agreements, but never sees the actual document. It's pretty cool stuff. It's great technology. Unrelated, but these are the things that we look for. We're reinventing the world that we live in, creating parallel economy where we're trying to reclaim our freedom, autonomy, liberty, and independence. But go to financialpma.com. We do still have some spaces open if you want to join the PMA before 4th of July. That one requirement is I do ask that you allow us to share the steps that we take with you and on your behalf to get your financial life UnWoke. Please do whatever you do, listen to this or talk to your financial advisor, your banker, etc. But let's defund the woke. Remember what we say, dis the globalist left. That stands for know where you donate, invest, and spend. I'm Jonathan Broadbent. This has been another episode of UnWoke.academy.